So in this segment, we're going to be talking about EU citizens being offered incentives to leave the UK. So basically, the British government is now bribing EU citizens to leave the country, which is just on so many levels. This is just a really stupid thing to do. How to say you're not welcome. We're going to pay you to leave. We're going to give you taxpayers' money to tell you to get lost. This is shocking behaviour from the British government. So EU citizens are being offered financial incentives to leave the UK. The Guardian has learnt months before the deadline to apply for settled status. From the 1st of January, EU citizens have quietly been added to the government's voluntary return scheme, where financial support is offered as an encouragement to return to the country of origin. Payments can include flights and up to £2,000 resettlement money. So the government's basically offering people £2,000, up to £2,000, to leave this country. This is taxpayers' money, by the way, being given to people to leave this country. Like, they will not help you out, people in this country, but they're offering people money to leave this country. Like, this is insane. People working to help vulnerable EU citizens in the UK said the offer of money to return home contradicted the government's claim that it was doing everything it could to encourage people to register for settled status. The deadline for Europeans living in the UK to apply for EU settlement scheme is the 30th of June. So people, if you haven't applied for settled status, like, really, you need to get a move on. Benjamin Morgan, who runs the EU Homeless Rights Project at the Public Interest Law Centre, said, it is clear from our casework that some of the most vulnerable EU citizens are yet to resolve their status. Barriers to applications and delays in Home Office decision-making remain significant factors. So this looks like it's more on the Home Office than anything. The mixed messaging about settled status on the one hand and voluntary returns on the other seriously undermines the government's claim that the rights of vulnerable Europeans will be protected after Brexit. And absolutely, I think he's correct here, because the government do not care about EU citizens. Let's not get it twisted now, unless you're rich. So this is shocking from the British government here, who have failed to get the the settlement scheme up and running properly, with issues still in the Home Office. It's just crazy. I haven't heard of many EU countries that have this issue, but at the same time, who knows? It might just not get coverage. But what we do know is that the British government is failing again. A Home Office spokesperson said some may choose not to obtain status under EU settled status and may not wish to remain in the UK after the deadline. This is why we have written to stakeholders to inform them that EEA nationals who wish to leave the UK may now be eligible for financial support to help them to do so under voluntary return scheme. So basically saying, like, some people, maybe they don't want to stay here, and maybe they need some help to go home. That's what the British government are saying. So the news came as research from the Joint Council of Welfare of Immigrants warned that thousands of European key workers risk losing their legal right to remain in the UK. And imagine if we lost a lot of these key workers who, imagine they took this offer to leave, would be in a much worse situation than we are in now. The report, titled "When the Clapping Stops, EU Care Workers After Brexit," warns that thousands of European citizens currently fulfilling key worker roles in the care sector, as well as those working in construction, manufacturing and agriculture, are at risk at losing their legal status and face removal from the UK. So what you can see here is, in part, people need to, start applying for settled status, but at the same time, the government really needs to start, sending letters to specific people here in order to, inform them about what's going on and how to apply for settled status, because we're going to lose a lot of key workers here. Not to mention the fact that some people may not know how to apply for settled status. It's not their fault. It's on the government. The government had changed the rules of the game, potentially before these people came to, after these people came to the UK. So this is on the government to fix, because Brexit is by design a government policy. Of 295 care workers surveyed by the charity, 1 in 7 were unsure what the EU SS was, and 1 in 3 had not heard about it before being in touch with the immigration watchdog, the JCWI. And so basically, a lot of people haven't heard of this scheme, and that shows that the government have failed in their job to inform people. And 1 in 3 did not know there was a deadline for the settlement scheme, or nor when it was. Most of the surveys were conducted between January and March last year. If a tiny fraction of the estimated EEA plus, EU plus, EEA and Swiss residents are unable to apply in time, tens of thousands will lose their status overnight, the report states. Without urgent action, the care sector is likely to be devastated, it adds. And the care sector is already in trouble because of the amount of extra work that's needed to not just care for older people who have illnesses, but also to deal with COVID as well. The report calls for the imminent lifting of the deadline for applying to the EUSS for European citizens to be automatically granted settled status, and for an end to hostile environment policies. And the rule should be anyone who doesn't have, a criminal history should be just granted settled status, regardless of if they're a key worker, if they've been furloughed, or if they're unemployed. This is how the British government should have done it. But instead, you're trying to get people to apply for a scheme which they may not have heard of. They don't know there's a deadline and may not know how to apply for it, especially if they're older. So this is the UK essentially failing at their job in protecting citizens within this country. It states that workers in industries with poor conditions, low pay, and insecure contracts such as care, construction, and agriculture are particularly at risk at slipping through the cracks in the scheme. Those unable to apply on time will be subject to measures including detention and removal, could be criminalised for working, renting accommodation, or driving a car. And what you're going to see is Windrush 2, the EU edition, which is that we're going to deport a load of people from EU countries or European countries because we didn't get our act together and didn't do the settlement scheme properly. So Chai Patel of the JCWI said, "Our research scares me because the people we talk to are far less vulnerable than other groups hidden in exploitative working conditions, and no one has been able to ask questions. Despite warnings from us and many other experts, the Home Office is burying its head in the sand, and just like it did with Windrush, making excuses instead of finding solutions," which is basically the Tory party's policies, which is we did our best, stop blaming us, and we didn't know about this, and stop talking to us, we don't want to know. Those are the three kind of things that the Conservative government love doing. The Immigration Minister Kevin Foster said the JCWI report presented an incredibly misleading picture of the EU settlement scheme as it relied on a small survey of less than 300 people conducted a year ago. The sample size is an issue, but it does show you there are problems with the current settlement scheme. Since then, millions of people have applied and been received by the scheme. He said, we have now almost 4.9 million applications to the hugely successful EU settlement scheme. There is now less than 6 months before the 30th of June 2021 deadline, and I would encourage all those eligible to apply now to secure their rights under UK law. A wide range of support is available online and over the telephone if you need it. We are funding 72 organisations across the UK to ensure no one gets left behind. But what we can see from the survey is that there are still huge issues with the UK settlement scheme. And if you want to know more about EU settlement issues, I recommend you follow this person here, Dr. Alex. Dr. Alex has been, covering this stuff really closely and looking at the issues. She's got some memes as well. The fact that the identification for being settled, for being qualified for the settled status is all digital as well, which causes even more problems, and there are huge issues just with that alone. So the UK, the way that we've done this is really stupid. It should be some sort of paper passport similar to what we're given officially by the British government. So this also ties in, with their scheme of the BNP, which is BNP would offer non-white Britons 50k to leave the UK. I don't know if that's 50k each or 50k altogether for every EU citizen. It must be 50k each, which is far less generous than the the money offered by the British government, which is only up to £2,000. So there's that. But you can see there's a clear issue here with the UK offering bribes to basically, send people away from the UK, which is incredibly xenophobic and also a massive waste of taxpayers' money. If people didn't want to be here, they would have left. We've already seen loads of key workers leave the UK because of the rampant xenophobia within this country. You don't stay where you're not welcome. And we've seen that massively with people within the from the EU. So I'm going to leave it there just to recap. We've talked about problems with the EU settlement and how a lot of people haven't applied for it. We've talked about how the British government is offering bribes essentially to send people away from the UK that are from the EU. And we've also talked about how this scheme is similar to the BNP's, just less generous. So I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.